crowd was incredible, a huge factor for us, allowing us to get some stops, helping us get some stops defensively in the full court, in the half court. Played really hard, got to continue to improve, of course. South Carolina hitting 13 threes was pretty significant, to have to overcome. I thought we had some guys that haven't at times played really big roles for us that, in my opinion, were as big a factor in this one as anyone else, namely Frank Anselm, Jason Holt, and I thought Marquez McBride played his best game as a Bulldog. Those guys were terrific. Again, crowd was terrific, great college game. South Carolina was terrific. Had a chance, obviously, to send it to another overtime. We were very fortunate, of course.
With that game, you guys were down 10 with, I think, like 6.5 minutes left in the second half. Just how did this group grind this thing out and get the win?
I look forward to watching the film. Yeah, we always talk about this. Let's try to get a stop, try to get an A shot. We got plenty of time here. If we get a couple stops and scores, this place will get loud, and it did. And that was it. That was it. I thought Cario offensively putting pressure on the rim down the stretch, getting to the line, struggled from the line a little bit, and really stepped up, with his level of poise or swagger or both or what have you. But he stepped up with confidence and converted at the end when it counted the most.
How key was the press tonight in the second half?
It's huge. Yeah. I just told the radio, I thought a couple of the biggest factors in the game, the guys I mentioned individually, but press and crowd. And I thought they worked hand in hand. When we got in press and it got really loud, it helps you, with your press or your half-court defense, which resulted in more pressure in the half-court. South Carolina's trying to run their offense, and it's really, really loud, and it's a little bit harder to communicate. We experienced that on the road in this league consistently, and this was a tough environment to play in if you're the opposition. And I'm very thankful to our fans that made it out, and hopefully we can continue to do that, continue to improve there. And I thought, we talked about crowd a lot. I thought our pressure in the full court was definitely a factor, led by Jason Holt at the point of it. Another factor was down the stretch. It seemed like we pressed for the last 10 minutes of the game, I'm guessing, and 5 minutes. So for 15 minutes, we made pretty good decisions. It was 5 guys in a stance, and I thought we played really, really hard, and we didn't foul. Our foul discipline was pretty strong as well.
You mentioned Cario there. He was held scoreless in the first half, ends up being the only scorer for y'all in overtime. Did you have a message for him at halftime?
No. Didn't. In fact, thought about not starting him in the second half as a staff, and we were really fortunate. He's a guy that his confidence never wavers. He's unique in that regard. He did the same thing at Ole Miss, where he appears to not be quite as engaged as you think offensively, or maybe not quite as confident, and then boom, he's hit 3 shots in a row or drawn some fouls. So credit him and his mental toughness, because he was huge for us offensively. I mean, we rode him offensively down the stretch. He was terrific.
Carrie, yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of confidence, players said that your message going into overtime was you're built for this. How important do you believe that your team being able to pull out will help them believe that?
Well, we've really, all year, most of our wins, outside of a few inferior opponents, which is part of all of our scheduling here in our league, have been grinded out games, that hadn't been overly pretty. It's just kind of our identity with this team, of course, and we've got a bunch of guys that play hard, and we've got to play that way, to have a chance. And I thought we played the last 15 minutes of the game. I don't know if we could have played any harder. Again, I like to thank our crowd because they were a factor, and our guys if we hadn't won a few of the really close ones to this point, especially at home, I'm not sure that we come away with this one, because it was early second half. It was pretty bleak for us.
Terry and Cario didn't have any points in that first half.
Mhm.
Did you see anything that South Carolina was doing that kind of prevented them from getting involved? And sort of along those lines, how big was Drez scoring 12 in that first
Huge.
half?
Yeah, their bigs did a good job of, we call it hedging. They were very extended on the floor with ball screen coverage, which allowed for the defender of the ball handler to get under that hedge and really did a good job of taking it out of our ball handlers' hands. We tried to get Terry and Cario freed up a few times, and they made the right decisions for the most part. We had a live ball turnover on the right lane by one of those guys early first half. But Terry not having scored in the first half didn't bother me overly. He's a guy that we've continued to challenge and will continue to challenge to let it come to him. In fact, he took a real tough one and owned it immediately. And I was proud of his poise and his decisions tonight. Him allowing the game to come to him and not taking 3 or 4 really tough ones in the first half results in some of these other guys getting open shots like Mark Drez. He played a pretty good floor game.
GG held to 6 points in the second half and overtime after 12 in the first.
Mhm.
Looked like Juice was on him for most of the night. What
Yeah.
impressed you most about his defensive effort, and what went into the decision to start him?
He's a tough kid with a high-level motor, and he just plays every day. That's what we see every day. He gets on the offensive glass too late in the game with. It was a huge play for us. He gets 5 steals. That's the type of effort that it takes. We've got to get to the point where we've got multiple guys that play that hard, that consistently. But he's got a chance to be a really good defensive player, and he's a developing offensive player. The second part of your question.
What went into the decision to start him?
To start him. Our last home game, I didn't like our defensive energy from the tip, and probably should have subbed a little bit more aggressively in that one. You always look at yourself in the mirror, and I wanted to get off to a really good start defensively. We didn't necessarily get off to a great start defensively, but that said, every minute he played, I thought he played really hard.
Mike, Braylon Bridges was a guy that pretty big contributor in
Yeah.
the past. Where's he at, and what's happening with his minutes right now?
It'll be game to game with all these guys. Braylon's happy we won, and he struggled a little bit offensively. We got really ball screen heavy, and Frank was doing a good job of sprinting the ball screen and separating from their bigs and getting to the rim. And on some of those dives, caught some lobs. Frank was really good on the offensive glass, was in a good rhythm defensively, and it was one of those, especially as you're crawling back in it. And this group's got 4 or 5 stops in a row. Frank's got great wind too. He's a guy that doesn't get as tired as most guys on our team. And so we just continued to ride him and provide him those minutes because he earned them. But it's nothing down on Braylon. In fact, I thought Braylon defensively, when he was in the game early, played very hard.
You opened by saying this is a huge win.
Yeah.
It puts you at 4-4 in the league at a time where it doesn't appear the middle of the league is very deep. It seems to be kind of lopsided top and bottom. What have you learned about your team? Where do you think you stand in the conference at this time?
Oh, I'm not very worried about the rest of the conference. I'm not in. 4-4 is a lot better than the alternative, obviously. We've gotten better throughout the year. We still have room for improvement. What have I learned? We got some fighters. We're pretty connected. We got a healthy locker room. We got guys that like each other, and we're a resilient group that's found a way to win some close games. Hopefully, we keep a bunch more close and maybe steal a few. But this group too will be ready to work on Monday. NCAA mandated day off tomorrow, and we'll get in there Monday afternoon, and we'll try to get a little bit better.
2 more questions?
As you mentioned it all, your team before the game, it's been 6 years since George has beaten.
Yeah, we did. I'm not really big into that type stuff, but I thought it might give our guys a little bit of added motivation. we talked about it at shoot around. I guess it was 12 straight, you know. That's pretty cool for our fans, I guess, you know. But, yeah, we talked about the fact that we got a chance to end a pretty significant streak, so, you know, big win for us. That's it. Thank you, guys.